Hello everyone and welcome to the course. Well, we're going to keep looking at the interface because there is some modularity here in Blender that is super cool that we can learn. And when we learn it, we're actually going to understand what these tabs are doing up here. So let's start. So we actually saw that we have the viewport here, we have our outliner here, we have our properties here, we have our timeline here. But let's do something really cool. Look at something here. Every time we see a window, see we have one here, one here, one here, and one here, we see that at the top left of that window we have a button, right? You see a button here, a button here, a button here, and a button here. You see it right here. They have a different logo, as you can see, a different icon, but they all have suspiciously the same placement, you see? Well, it turns out that Blender is modular, and that is freaking awesome because it means that you can turn any window you want into anything else. So there are not just 1, 2, 3, 4 things that you have in Blender in the terms of windows. You have actually many more, and you can uncover them by clicking on that button that we have on the top left of every window that we have here in Blender. So let's see it. For example, I'm going to click here at my button, and we're going to see that there are actually lots more windows that we can play with. So we're actually at the 3D viewport, and we can see that the logo for the 3D viewport is the same one as the one that we have currently active, meaning that is the one that we're watching. But then look at this. We know that this is our outliner. You know that, remember? So that means that if I look for my outliner here, it should be somewhere here. Let's see it right here. And if I click it, now this window is an outliner too. Do you see it? We have the same information. It's the same thing, but now it's here and here too. But hey, why would I need two of the same thing, right? So let's turn back. Oh, so that's great. It means that we have only it means that we have only seen a few of this, right? We have seen the properties, we have seen the outliner, we have seen where is my timeline, and then we have seen the 3D viewport. Look at the other ones. So let's look at them real quick. Right, so we have the 3D viewport, we have our image editor. It will help us edit images, right? That's, pretty standard stuff. We're going to learn how to use it as well. We have our UV editor. It looks the same, but it's different. And when we're going to start talking about rendering later in the course, you're going to understand what we're going to be doing here. Don't worry about it. But for now, you know that it exists. The compositor is going to help us composite images when we finish rendering them. So that's great. Texture node editor. It creates nodes so we can edit textures. So that's also really cool. We don't use this much actually. But well, I am actually showing everything that there is in here, so we're going to go through each one of them. We have the shader editor, really important, really important. Basically here we create materials, and don't worry about all of this, we don't know what it means yet. Later we're going to understand what it does, but this is how to access it. Shader editor, all right? Here's where we create materials, basically. Video sequencer, here we could edit video. Right? If you understand a little bit of video editing, like Premiere, Final Cut Pro, all that stuff, this lets us do basic stuff for video editing, like cutting and rearranging clips. But we can do that, so that's really cool. I'm sorry about that. That's not there. And the movie clip editor, basically this is used for tracking, right? That's one way to put it. You can track video here. What do you mean by track, Sebastian? What do you mean by track? Well, turns out you can put like a 2D video here, right? You film a video, you put it here, and then you can make some tracks, so then you can put 3D objects inside your video to make special effects, VFX and all that stuff. That's a simple way to put it. So that's where we're going to be doing this. So now you know what we have over here. In the animation thing, we have the dope sheet, quite important as well for animation. We're going to analyze it later. Don't worry about what it does for now. The timeline, you already saw that we have another one right here. So now we have two of them. The graph editor, this actually lets us modify the animation curves. I'm saying that everything is really important, but believe me, this is really important as well when we look into animation. But now you know what it is, the graph editor right here. Drivers, if we want to do complex animation systems, this is the way to go. We use drivers right here. non-linear animation. It looks very similar to your timeline, and actually right now it works mostly the same. It has maybe a few more tricks up its sleeve, right? But we don't mind. We're not going to use it for now. Our simple, where do we have it here? Our simple timeline is going to do, so don't worry about it. Scripting, we can actually program things right here. We can do some scripting. We can actually create a new file and we can just do things. So yeah, this is exactly for that, and we can run some scripts. I'm going to delete that for now. You can actually start looking into how these things work. I have a Python console, fully fledged Python console to work. And it works just as a Python programming language. Look, if I say a equals to 5, right? And then I go and say, hey, give me a plus a, it's going to give me 10. So yeah, it works. It's awesome. We have some information about my scene, so it's really important. This is especially important if you're going to be programming, because you want to know how to access all of these things. Don't worry about it for now. Again, we're going to be going into more detail as the course progresses. And we have data, right? So we have our outliner. We already saw what it does. Properties, it's the same. Look, if we put the properties here, it's the same as this window. Really cool. File browser, so we can actually look for files that we have in our computer. Really cool. And our preferences pane. Now look, that this preferences pane is the same one as going to edit and preferences. Look at it. But this is floating, but it's the same. See, same things right here. So we're not going to be accessing our preferences here through this. I'm going to put the 3D viewport right here. Instead, we're going to go in edit preferences, just so that we're on the same page. All right, so that is the modularity. You can do anything you want, and you can turn any window to any other window you wish. So for example, I can do another thing that is actually quite useful. I can make this a little bit bigger and then turn the outliner into another 3D viewport that shows me the same scene but from a different point of view, so I can work through two things at a time. So it's really powerful. So we're going to be using combinations of all of this a lot. So that's how you know. So how does all this connect to the tabs that you're seeing up here, right? Remember that I told you this at the beginning of the video. Let's turn this back to the outliner real quick, and we're gonna see. So turns out that they have predefined tabs for each and everything that you can do in Blender, more or less. So one for modeling, one for sculpting, one for UV editing, texture paint, and so on. But what they actually are, if I click here in modeling, they're going to rearrange my windows, and they're going to select out of this list the best types of windows that are going to accommodate what I want to do in this part of the 3D Blender pipeline, right? So for modeling, they go, hey, you're going to need a viewport, and you're probably going to need the outliner and the properties to change the properties of some things, right? But if you want to do some sculpting, I'm going to show you the 3D viewport, but I'm going to show you specifically the properties of the sculpt tool, right? Now for UV editing, this is basically for creating textures, I'm going to create another window here that is going to be using our UV editor right here, you see? And then you're going to be seeing also your 3D scene to see how your texture is applied to your 3D object. You see that? For the texture paint is the same. For shading, they make another arrangement where they're actually down here showing us the shader editor along with our 3D viewport as well. So we can see how the materials that we create down here appear in the 3D viewport. So that's actually what it's doing. Same for animations. Look at it. We have our timeline here. Rendering it just changed to show the output of the render, but since we haven't rendered anything, well, we're not going to be seeing anything right now. And compositing, for compositing that output image here that we have here, or a video, we can do that here, and scripting for actually creating a script. See? But now check this out. We're gonna learn also something really cool before we leave. Look at this. We have our basic layout here. It has 4 windows. You can see them right here. We've been working with them a lot. Now look at the scripting window. It doesn't have 4. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So how can you manually create more windows so that you can actually recreate this layout if you wish? Well, it's actually really cool. It's a little bit complex. People don't actually see it, but with my Mac, I can actually zoom right here. See? All right, so you can actually see things a little better. So the trick to creating another window is to go to a corner of a window, and then you'll see that your mouse will turn into this crosshair, right? Once it turns into a crosshair, it means that you can drag another window to practically to your left or to your right. So what does that mean? Let me zoom out now. So I'm going to put my cursor there, right? Now that turns into a crosshair. I'm going to left click and drag to my left, and look at what's happening. I created another window, right? Essentially, I duplicated my viewport, but since now we understand how Blender uses modularity, I can then go here and make it something else. Perhaps this is going to be my UV editor for creating textures. And now I have it here. And I can do that in any kind of window I have to create another copy of itself. And in that copy, add other things. So this makes Blender very, very modular, very cool to work with, because essentially you can create as many windows as you want and make them anything you wish. See, I can have another viewport right here and another viewport right here. You see? So how do you close them? Well, you drag again from the corner, but up, right, to close from when it came from. So this one came from this one, right? So I left click and drag up. You can see that there is a little arrow here, meaning that I'm going to collapse this new window into itself. So I'm going to let go, and I collapsed it. Same here. So crosshair to my left, to my right, because that's where it came from. I let go, and it's no longer there. And same here. So crosshair to my right. I verify that I see the arrow, so I can collapse it. I let go, and it's no longer there. And then I can click here the outliner. And now what I have again is the original layout that we started with. So definitely mess around with this, really cool. So you have an idea of what you can do, what works best for you. And Blender is actually providing you with something they suggest for each and everything that you can do in Blender. But we're not going to use them. Basically, we're going to create our layouts ourselves. So that's what we're going to do in the course. So we're going to leave it at this for now. I'm going to send you lots of hugs, and I'll see you in the next one.